In Ouagadougou, today our streets witness a moment that will echo across history. Armored vehicles, artillery, and rocket systems roll proudly onto our soil, not as the leftovers of colonial powers, but as the chosen instruments of a sovereign nation. This delivery is not about China alone, nor about weapons alone. It is about Burkina Faso declaring to the world, we decide our future, we shape our destiny. France has withdrawn, the West has turned its back. But we stand unbroken with the Sahel Alliance. With Mali and Niger by our side, we no longer kneel to dictates from Paris or Washington. If these convoys of steel are more than military tools, they are symbols of dignity, courage, and the rebirth of Africa's independence. Let every African know the time of silence is over. The time of obedience is over. This is our new chapter, and it begins here in Burkina Faso. This is Africa's rise. This is Africa's hour. In August 2025, the streets of Ouagadougou trembled not with fear, but with pride. Convoys of armored vehicles, artillery systems, and rocket launchers painted in desert camouflage thundered into Burkina Faso's military bases. For some, it was just a weapons delivery. For Africa, it was a declaration of sovereignty. Just 2 years earlier, France had been forced out of Burkina Faso, its long-standing military presence dismantled under waves of popular protest. The United States, cautious and distant, offered little more than intelligence and conditions. Western promises withered, leaving the Sahel exposed. Yet instead of collapsing, a new chapter began. Burkina Faso, under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, east not as a desperate client, but as a determined nation seeking strength on its own terms. With the Sahel Alliance, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso united, the region now stands as a bloc that rejects dependency on Paris or Washington. At the center of this transformation lies the arsenal that arrived in August 2025, weapons not only of war but of diplomacy, pride, and independence. This transformation did not begin with the roar of Chinese engines in 2025. It began with disillusionment. For decades, the country had lived under the shadow of France, framed as a partner but treated as a dependency. French bases dotted the Sahel. French advisors dictated military operations. French interests shaped political choices in Ouagadougou. Yet, despite years of intervention, Burkina Faso remained plagued by violence, displacement, and despair. By 2022, insurgents roamed freely across the northern provinces. Villages were burned and nearly 2 million Burkinabé were displaced. France, the so-called guarantor of security, failed to deliver stability. Instead, resentment boiled over. Tens of thousands filled the streets demanding the end of French influence, waving placards that declared, "We want sovereignty, not guardianship." Captain Ibrahim Traoré, rising to power through revolution, understood this sentiment intimately. His speeches echoed the voice of Thomas Sankara, the legendary revolutionary of the 1980s who defied imperialism and preached self-reliance. For Traoré, was not a slogan, it was survival. And so in January 2023, French troops were expelled. By early 2025, Burkina Faso alongside Mali and Niger announced their collective withdrawal from ECOWAS, forming instead the Alliance of Sahel States, AES. This was more than diplomatic paperwork. It was a rejection of the Western framework that had long defined African politics. ECOWAS, once celebrated as a body of regional solidarity, become an extension of Western pressure, issuing sanctions and ultimatums against governments that dared defy Paris or Washington. By walking away, Burkina Faso sent a message to the continent: we will no longer be disciplined like children, we will chart our own course. But sovereignty requires power. Without the means to defend its borders and people, independence risks becoming rhetoric. Here lies the significance of the 2025 weapons shipment. It was not merely an exchange of arms, it was the physical embodiment of a political choice. Traoré's government turned to Beijing not because of blind loyalty, but because China delivered what the West withheld: tools of defense without political strings. Still, Traoré did not present this pivot as dependency on a new master. The contrary, his December 2024 speech as armored vehicles were handed to the army resonated with both soldiers and citizens. This is the gift of our people to their defenders. Take these tools and fight with honor. We shall not be slaves to anyone. Not yesterday, not today, not tomorrow. This was not an embrace of China, but a liberation from Western dominance. The Sahel Alliance in Traoré's vision was not a block of victims seeking patrons. It was a coalition of equals forging their own destiny. Mali drew on Russian support. Niger explored Turkish drones. Burkina Faso diversified with Egyptian, Emirati, artillery, and Turkish UAVs. The message was unmistakable: no single power would dictate the security of Africa's heartland again. Analysts may count calibers and measure weapon ranges, but the true significance of these weapons is not technical. It is political. For years, Africa was told to wait, negotiate, to accept oversight while its villages burned. The result was betrayal, promises without delivery, rhetoric without substance. China changed the equation. Its delivery was paraded openly, not hidden in secrecy. Where the West whispered, China roared. But Traoré was careful in his framing. He did not say we belong to China. He said, we belong to ourselves. This distinction is vital. The weapons were received not as gifts from a patron, but as tools chosen by a sovereign state. This resonated deeply with ordinary citizens. For them, seeing modern vehicles and rocket systems was not only about firepower, it was about hope. Proof that their government was investing in their survival. For soldiers, it meant they no longer faced insurgents with bare hands, but with tools worthy of their sacrifice. Trained it clearly, these weapons were not gifts from abroad, but the property of the Burkina Faso people entrusted to their army. That framing matters. It transforms the weapons from symbols of dependency into emblems of unity. And behind this stands history. The echoes of Thomas Sankara still resound in the Sahel, nearly 4 decades after his assassination. Sankara rejected dependency, the nation Burkina Faso, the land of upright people, and declared that Africa must stand on its own feet. Ibrahim Traoré, though born after Sankara's death, became the living heir to that legacy. His speeches echo Sankara's cadence. His policies reflect Sankara's defiance. His vision continues Sankara's unfinished mission. Thus, the convoys of August 2025 were not merely military reinforcements. They were symbols of continuity. From Sankara's defiance to Traoré's assertion, the dreams of the past to the sovereignty of the present, Burkina Faso is reclaiming its place as the vanguard of Africa's anti-colonial struggle. The sight of Chinese convoys rolling into Ouagadougou will be remembered not only as a military milestone, but as a political declaration. Burkina Faso will no longer wait for salvation from the West. It will no longer accept the role of a dependent state. This moment is about sovereignty. It is about dignity. It is about Africa taking its destiny into its own hands. For too long, Paris and Washington claimed to be guardians of this Burheld. Yet villages burned, soldiers died with outdated rifles, and millions were displaced. But today, Burkina Faso under Ibrahim Traoré stands as proof that Africa can chart a different path. The weapons themselves matter, yes, but what matters more is the pride they restore, the confidence they inspire, and the history they honor. Fiery voice of Thomas Sankara to the determined leadership of Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso has carried a torch of resistance that now lights a new chapter. Alliance stands united, not in dependency, but in defiance. And this story is not Burkina Faso's alone. It belongs to every African who has ever dreamed of freedom. Member of the diaspora who has ever wondered if the sacrifices of their ancestors still echo today, the answer is yes. They echo here in the land of upright people and across the entire continent. Now is the time to rise. Now is the time to reclaim what was stolen, to refuse silence. Burkina Faso is not just defending its borders, it is defending the very idea of African sovereignty. And if one nation can stand, so can an entire continent. If you believe in this vision, if you believe in Africa's right to define its own future, then share this message, raise your voice, and join this movement. Because the story of independence is not finished. It is being written now in Ouagadougou, in Bamako, in Niamey, and in every African heart that beats for freedom. Brothers and sisters of Africa, this is our time. And this is Africa's time.